Hello and welcome to J-Rock's Babylon. I am your host, Jason J. Rock Houston, and this is J-Rock's Babylon news for December 8th, 2025. And well, I thought today, you may not even realize this, but December 8th is kind of happen have a lot of special not special, but kind of memorable events happen. And December 8th is kind of a sad day without even kind of realizing it. I mean, first of all, December 8th marks the 45th anniversary of the murder. Yes, the murder, folks, of Beatle legend John Lennon. Now, here's a few kind of interesting facts. John Lennon, sadly, was only 40 years old when he was shot outside his New York apartment building, the Dakota. Um, he'd come home. He's coming home from a recording session that night and shot down right, in the prime of his life. And in 1980, John Lennon was experiencing a musical comeback. He'd the Beatles had broken up. You know. By that point in 1980, the Beatles are no longer around. The Beatles are each kind of celebrating, their solo careers. John Lennon is at that point coming back from a 5-year break from the music business. Um, he was on the way back, folks, and John Lennon was such a he was one of those icons in pop culture that I mean, just alone, you talk about the Beatles. I mean, and look what those four lads from Liverpool accomplished together. I mean, you look at everything from a song as simple as "All You Need Is Love." That's one of my all-time favorite Beatles tracks. It's one of the earlier hits, and I loved it because just love the sentiment of a song. All you need is love, love, love is all you need. Then you go back, you have stuff like I want to hold your hand. That's a great kind of fun tune. What guy doesn't kind of have that feeling for that special girl? I want to hold your hand. Who doesn't, right? And then probably if of course, probably my all-time favorite, which favorite Beatles track, it's got to be like "Let It Be." Now that of course is a Paul McCartney song, but um, you also talk about some of John Lennon's solo hits. Of course, probably the ultimate being Imagine, um, Give Peace a Chance. Just so many great tunes. And, John Lennon, I'll say, and the Beatles were a little before my time, but of course, being a music fan and a music lover, how can you not have an appreciation for what the Beatles did? I mean, obviously I'm a huge fan of hard rock and metal, but as I've gone on record saying that I have a huge appreciation for everything from the Beatles, Tom Petty, the Eagles, and everything in between. I mean, even Dolly Parton and stuff like that. Dolly Parton's kind of out of my wheelhouse as far as what I typically listen to. It's country music, but Dolly's a great songwriter. I also listen to stuff like the Bee Gees throughout my lifetime. And what do all these great artists have in common? They're great songwriters. They write great, memorable songs. Now, probably you want to talk a little more about the Beatles. You look at a song, folks, like "Helter Skelter." Now, for anybody checking this newscast out, "Helter Skelter" is not a Motley Crue song. No, in fact, it was a Beatles tune, and that's probably as metal as the Beatles ever got. But they gave it a shot, folks. Okay, and so again, talking about December 8th, 1980. I mean, um, I was very young at the time, but I remember seeing it on the news, and everybody's talking about John Lennon. And again, maybe because my age, I was like, "Who's John Lennon? Who's John Lennon?" You know. But the older I get, of course, I became more and more aware of who John Lennon was and why he's such an icon. And it's one of those times. I mean, it was much more than just a celebrity death. I mean, you got to remember. I mean, John Lennon was murdered coming home. From a recording studio. He's coming home to his own home. Somebody was waiting for him, waiting there to shoot him. And as far as the guy that shot him, um, Mark David Chapman. I mean, this guy was a real loser. I mean, he pleaded. Of course, everybody knows he pleaded to second degree murder. He got 25 years to life. He's still in prison. He continues every year to get his parole denied, and I would be very surprised if he ever gets out of prison. He certainly does not deserve it. Um, he took the life of John Lennon. Again, John Lennon was a very young man when he died. I mean, 40 years old. And wow, I just don't know but that was a day that will live in infamy for forever because not just was John Lennon an icon, but he meant so much. It was kind of every year, even 45 years later, which is today, um, we're looking back, talking about the death of John Lennon, the murder of John Lennon, and the thing of it is, not just were so many people affected by the man's songs and his music, but I mean, he meant so much to people. Um, John Lennon was one of the first kind of artists to really get vocal and write about social things and things that he felt needed to be talked to about. He didn't really care if he offended anybody or not either. He was a true artist. One of the greatest songwriters of all time. Is just no denying that, folks. And there really isn't. And I won't say too much more about the killer, Mark David Chapman, because again, what a loser! Waiting for John Lennon to come home, shoots him dead. And and I just gotta say, I remember seeing him give an interview once on TV where from prison, and he's laughing and smiling. He's trying to, he's telling his story. He's looking in the camera, trying to get his 15 minutes of fame. In fact, the one thing in this TV interview I saw years ago with Mark David Chapman that, and I think he accomplished his goal, which was kind of to try to get that 15 minutes of fame, and it was kind of a shocking statement. The statement that I heard John Lennon's killer say in this TV interview years ago was that they asked him point blank, why did you kill John Lennon? And he basically said, because before I killed John Lennon, I was the biggest nobody in life, but once I killed the biggest somebody, I became somebody. I mean, again, just think how sick of mind you have to say something like that. And so, 45 years later, as we sit here looking back on the life and the murder and the death of John Lennon, I say it's very important to honor the man and to remember the songs. Go get your John Lennon albums. Go get your Beatles albums. Start reminiscing. Start singing. Imagine. I mean, those are some prolific lyrics and words. Listen to the words and uh, you know dance to the music. Get down. Whatever you got to do to celebrate. It should be. Well, definitely, there's no denying we mourn the death and mourn the loss of John Lennon, of course. Um, just so sad the man had so many great years ahead. Um, and so just celebrate John Lennon and get down, dance to his music, whatever you got to do. Um, it's hard to believe 45 years. Now, as I said at the top of the newscast, December 8th, is one of those dates which sadly now, starting with the murder and the death of John Lennon, um, then you also got to talk about the murder, folks. Yes, the murder of um, Damage Plan, Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell. And for that, we're gonna a few way into the future. We start talking today about the death and the murder of John Lennon in 1980. Today marks the 45th anniversary of that. Well, in reference to Dimebag Darrell, he was murdered on stage while he was playing with his band Damage Plan. And the thing that was, oddly enough, he was killed on December 8th. Now, a lot of times these characters that commit these murders like this, they purposely set out, first of all, to kill a celebrity. I mean, from what is known about, and I'm not going to even mention the guy's name because he's not really worth mentioning. Basically, again, Dimebag Darrell, diehard, he's diehard metal and Kiss, diehard Van Halen and Kiss fan. He loved hard rock and metal, Sabbath, Ozzy, Dio. There's no denying that's the stuff that influenced Dimebag Darrell. Now, again, people think, a lot of people thought, that the date of December 8th played a role in the murder of Dimebag Darrell. I mean, they asked, okay, why did the guy choose that date to kill him? It happened to also fall on the anniversary of it. December 8th is when John Lennon was murdered. Hey, if we go out and kill, Dimebag Darrell, not only is he a celebrity in his own right, but it'll get talked about because, hey, I killed this guy on the anniversary of John Lennon's murder, all these years later. And again, maybe that played a role in it, maybe it didn't, but in any event, when you bring up the murder of Dimebag Darrell, that's something that always gets talked about. The date he was killed. Was it something in regards to the murder of Dimebag Darrell? Did that even play a role in the killer's mind? Was he even aware of that? Who knows? But again, anytime you bring up the murder of Dimebag Darrell, it's one of the first things that gets discussed. People have a fascination with numbers and stuff like that. Maybe it's just an odd freak kind of coincidence, but a lot of these killers that are looking to kind of get some attention and they want to get their names in the news, they want to go down, in history or whatever, they think this is a way to do it. They get their 15 minutes of fame, whatever. The guy that killed Dimebag Darrell, he will always be the guy that killed Dimebag Darrell, and he did it on December 8th, 2004. And again, with the murder of Dimebag Darrell, that was the first time where, you go to concerts and you see security, but I don't think too many people ever really thought about security and safety to that point until Darrell was murdered. I mean, and you got to thank the other band members and Darrell's older brother Vinnie Paul, the drummer. He was right next to him on stage when he was shot dead. I mean, it doesn't get any more grimmer than that, And after the death of Darrell, a lot of concert places got a lot more tighter with security. That became something people started to really kind of think about. And Dimebag Darrell, oddly enough, when he died in 2004, when he got shot dead on stage, he was only, I believe, 38 years old. So he wasn't even 40 years old, died tragically young. And then, the other Pantera members, the Damage Plan members, and especially his brother, Vinnie Paul, the rest of Vinnie's life, he kind of struggled with losing brother Darrell, obviously they were really tight. They played together since they were very young. They were thick as thieves, you know. And again, like I mentioned, Dimebag Darrell and his brother Vinny, they grew up on Van Halen and Kiss and Sabbath, and those were the bands that they always kind of talked about. And it was kind of interesting that when Darrell was laid to rest, he was buried in a Kiss casket that was donated by the band Kiss, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons to be specific, because they were friends with the Pantera guys. They knew what a huge Kiss fan Darrell was, and that was their way of respect honoring their fallen friend Darrell. And but that wasn't the only tribute. Eddie Van Halen, who was one of Darrell's all-time favorite guitar heroes. Over years, Darrell had made it known that what a huge Eddie Van Halen fan he was, and that he really was a fan of Eddie Van Halen's black and white, was referred to Bumblebee guitar, which was a guitar that Eddie had on the back cover of the Van Halen album, Van Halen 2, from 1979. And not only did Eddie Van Halen also attend Dimebag Darrell's funeral, along with the members of Kiss and some other notable rock stars, such as the members of Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, and Zakk Wylde, but Eddie Van Halen did appear at the funeral, and when he went up to the funeral and said his final farewell to Darrell in his Kiss casket, it was reported that Eddie Van Halen brought the Bumblebee guitar, placed it in the Kiss casket, and that Eddie Van Halen guitar was buried with Dimebag Darrell. Now, can you imagine being a Van Halen fan like Darrell? And not only do you get buried in a Kiss casket, but Eddie Van Halen's guitar that you talked about how much you love that guitar, the man himself, Van Halen, puts it in your Kiss casket and it's buried with you. I mean, and then of course, all these years later, in 2020, October 2020, Eddie Van Halen, loses his battle with cancer. We like to think that maybe that Darrell's up there with his brother Vinny, who's since passed, Eddie Van Halen. Maybe they're jamming in heaven. Who knows? We would like to kind of these are kind of the things we would like to think about at least, and so like Pantera, as far as Pantera, the brothers have since, of course, sadly passed on, but Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown are now continuing to play live as Pantera, and of course they since the brothers are of course unable to play with Pantera, they're no longer here. Their shoes are being filled by Charlie Benante, the drummer of Anthrax, and Darrell's really good friend Zakk Wylde. Now, when I first heard that Pantera was going to continue on without the brothers, I wasn't sure. I didn't know what the fans would think, but I see that they're doing at least in a way that honors the brothers. And I don't know if the Pantera reunion would be going on if Vinnie Paul and Darrell were still alive. Maybe the guys would have patched up their differences with Philip and Selmo. Who knows? We'd like to think that. So, I think it's great that Pantera's out there with Charlie and Zakk, flying the Pantera flag. That's really, super duper. And I think that's just, super that they're doing that. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about, first of all, can you believe it's been 45 years since the death of John Lennon, or I should say murder, because he was shot outside his own, home in New York, the Dakota. It's hard to believe that Dimebag Darrell, legendary Pantera guitarist, was been 21 years since his death now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. And again, I should say the murder of Dimebag Darrell, because he was really the first one to murdered live on stage. I mean, never happened before. I don't think it's happened since. Thank God for that. Do you think, in regards to Darrell's death, do you think the fact that he was killed on, December 8th, do you think that played a role in his killer taking that day to kill him? Just hey, to get in the news, kill him on the same day as John Lennon. Who knows? Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Um, I'd like to know what do you guys think about Pantera with Charlie Benetti and Zach Wild. Are you a fan of what they're doing? There's talk that Pantera may put out some kind of live album to kind of celebrate the current lineup of the band. I think that would be a cool thing to do for the fans. Um, so, anyways, I just saw it kind of, it kind of dawned on me when I woke up today. December 8th, has kind of this historical connection to these two tragic deaths, murders. And I don't know if they're even really connected, but there's been a lot of talk about that over years, especially in reference to Dimebag Darrell's death. What did the killer choose that date because he knew it'd be talked about? I don't know. It's just sad that that we have to look back, again in reference to Darrell, 21 years gone, 45 years since John Lennon's passed on. I think the best thing to do is just remember these guys um, as they are. And I think the one thing they have two things in common, besides being just great human beings, great, gifted musicians. Um, they left their mark on the world. They left their musical footprint. Let's celebrate the music. Let's celebrate the life. And sadly, because both these guys died so tragically young, they will forever be young. I mean, Dimebag Darrell, never going to see a picture of him with gray hair. Same thing with John Lennon, died way too young. So anytime you see a picture of these guys, they'll be forever young. They'll forever live in our hearts. So on this day, December 8th, 2025, let's raise a glass. Let's get down to some Pantera and some Beatles and some John Lennon music. Let's honor these guys because they left their mark in the world, and I don't think anybody's ever going to forget Dimebag Darrell or John Lennon. I am Jason Jrock Houston, and you have been watching Jrock's Babylon News for December 8th, 2025. We'll see you all again real soon. Take care. Bye for now.